Hi everybody. In this video we will talk about how to simulate physics on an object in Unreal. So that way in our shooter we can interact with physics objects that could deter us from getting to certain areas, or while shooting it be able to allow us an access to certain areas we couldn't access to before. So I'm going to hit play and I'll talk about the different physics objects that I have default set up in here. It's pretty easy to set up. We have to simulate the physics and determine the mass of the object in kilograms, and then let it run. So I'm going to hit play here, and as I'm rolling through, I will talk about the mass that I already have set up. So when we simulate physics, we determine the weight of an object, and each object can have a different mass to it. This first one, I have it set, I think, to 100 kilograms. So if I shoot it and move it around, I can also run into it and it'll move it. But if I shoot it, I can move it around pretty easily. So 100 kilograms is not really a lot. So I can also increase that. This one is at 200 kilograms. So I can still move it, but it takes me a couple more shots to move it the same distance. The next one, I think, is at 300 kilograms. So it takes me a lot more shots in order to get it to move that distance. And this last one is 400 kilograms. So it'll take me more shots even just to move it a slight amount. So all four of those cubes are the same exact size, so it's visually hard to tell if an object is heavy or not. So the better way to do this is primarily, if an object is smaller, then that would mean it would weigh less. So the smaller the object, the less it could weigh. So this first cube is right at 100 kilograms. The second one, a little larger in size, is at 200 kilograms. The next one, larger in size, 300 kilograms, so it's harder to move. And then the next one's 400 kilograms, so it's even harder to move. Then the last one's 500 kilograms. So I can barely even nudge that along with a lot of bullets. So let's talk about how to set it up, and I'll show you the walls that I have back there. So we need either a static mesh or one of these basic primitive objects. And I'm just going to drag in a cube here. And if I move that up so it looks like it's sitting on the ground surface, over here in the details panel, we can go to simulate physics and turn that on, so checkbox that. As default, it'll have a mass in kilograms at 177 dot a bunch of values. And if I play that and go find that, I can shoot that and move it around. If I collide with it with the player's collision, it'll also move around. So as default, it's around 177 kilograms. If I back out of play mode and select it again, I can instead click on the mass in kilograms box and determine an exact mass here. So I can have it really low, it's 25. So if I hit play, it'll be pretty easy to move around. It'll spin around, flip around as it hits the surfaces. Or if I really crank that up to much higher, let's do 400, and then hit play. So that'll be much heavier, much more difficult for me to move that shape now. So it's as simple as that. All you have to do is come in here and turn simulate physics on, and then mass in kilograms to your value that you want. So then I can come in here and make some walls, make it so that they can interact with one another. This smaller wall is 100 kilograms, smaller cubes. I've changed the second wall to 200 kilograms, so that should be more difficult for me to move them. And then I have a more complete compact wall at smaller kilograms. The closer objects are together, the more their mass will kind of add up and make it more difficult. So I have some holes in the first two walls. That's why my mass is larger. But if my objects are closer together, I can have less mass, but they work together, so it'll be more difficult for me to move them. Then this last one, I have one of my moving targets, perpetual motion object targets from one of the previous demos behind it, which will give it some kind of purpose for this wall. So basically, I need to break down the wall in order to shoot the target. So we'll test that out and play that. So I'm going to come over here to the smaller wall. This, I think, is at 50 kilograms. So that's pretty easy to block and knock over. The more I shoot it, the more it'll dissipate over, and it'll all react properly. This next one is at 100 kilograms, so it's going to take me more shots and more precise shots to knock over the wall. So if I shoot on the bottom, it's not going to move too much, but if I shoot near the top, slowly I can knock that wall over. This next one over here, they're compacted more, but they have a smaller mass, 50 kilograms, so it'll wobble more, but it will take more shots to knock it over. This last one over here is the same 50, but now I have a larger, better purpose here, which I have a target behind it that's spinning around. So I'll need to knock it over, and it'll all kind of react, so you see it kind of waving and wobbling across one another. Kind of knocks them over some more, I can see it. So then now that target should follow around, and I can shoot that target, knock it over. So that really gives a purpose for why we have a wall or destructible objects, not really destructible, but objects that are simulating physics there. It'll all work on top of each other pretty well. Looks nice on top of each other, and I'll respect all the collisions there. So that's how we can simulate physics and change the mass of an object through the kilogram value.